Have you been told you need to stop doing what you love, whether it's exercise, running, or a sport? Well, here at Dynamic, we don't like that answer. In this podcast, we'll talk to leaders in the health and wellness space from Southwest Florida to get the solutions you need to get you back to doing what you love. Welcome to the Dynamic Naples Podcast. What's going on in Southwest Florida? Today I want to talk about weight loss, the calories in, calories out model, and weight loss as it pertains to iron deficiency. So let's start off with the calories in, calories out paradigm. This paradigm has been around for about 100 years, and we've been for decades told to eat less, move more. Well, I don't think that's the best way to go about it. I think it's kind of a broken system. It can work. It's tedious. You have to count lots of calories, and you basically have to be in a chronic state of controlled starvation. And food is and hunger is one of our prime drivers. So that's, an incredibly hard task to basically always be hungry. And in the end, your the food, that drive for food and hunger is going to probably win. And I personally subscribed to this model for a while, and I did it. I got in really good shape and really, counted my calories, was really strict with my eating, barely had any cheat meals or anything like that, and I was miserable and tired, to be honest. Now, if our bodies were as simple as like a car, the calories in, calories out thing might work better, but we're more complicated than a car. We have hormones that can affect things. And that's good news because there's workarounds for this, and there's easier ways to lose weight and not feel miserable. So, I was doing the whole, eat 6 times a day, eat mostly carbs, and I was doing what I was told and thinking it was the right way to go about it. Here's the problem with that. If you're always eating carbs, like 6 times a day like you're supposed to, you're spiking insulin 6 times a day. Insulin will suppress your body's ability to burn fat. It does the opposite. It's a builder. Its main role is to get sugar out of the blood, but it also builds things. It builds fat, adipocytes, and then in turn, the fat will secrete cytokines, which signal for inflammation. So to go about weight loss this way is kind of like being a salmon. You're always fighting against the current. It's very difficult to keep that battle up. Luckily, there's a solution. You can burn fats instead of carbs. So that's, I've mentioned this in other podcasts. Our body has 2 fuel sources, carbs and fats. If you constantly give the body carbs, it's going to preferentially use the carbs. It's easier to access. But if you just lay off the carbs, you'll go into ketosis. That's the body's way of burning fats for fuel. And that's a much more sustained type of energy. So you'll feel pretty good when you're in ketosis. 2 ways to go into ketosis. That's either to do some fasting or to adopt an animal-based diet and have a, basically low-carb, high-fat diet. That will keep you in ketosis more often. And that's really good for the metabolic system because there's a term called metabolic inflexibility. That is the body kind of loses its ability to burn fats if you're constantly giving it carbs. It almost like forgets how to use fats for energy. So that's metabolic inflexibility and kind of a not so healthy place to be, and that's what leads to metabolic syndrome. I'm not saying that carbs are bad. I'm just saying that our typical diets and what we've been told to eat, a diet rich in complex carbs 6 times a day, I think that's way too much for most people. And going into ketosis is going to have some health benefits, including weight loss. But the biggest problem I have with the calories in, calories out model is the guilt. I just think it places the blame on the individual. So when someone's overweight, there's a stigma of them being lazy or glutton, and that's just wrong. Some people will be eating right and doing a lot of exercise and are just having so much difficulty losing weight, and I think it's because they're just never going into ketosis, but it makes the person feel like it's their fault. So I think to tell somebody just to, eat less, move more can almost be insulting because they've probably tried that and probably failed, and it's not really their fault. It's the hormonal reasons. So that's my rant on the calories in, calories out paradigm. All right, next up, I want to get into iron deficiency. This is pretty interesting. Iron deficiency is super common. Let's talk about some of the symptoms of iron deficiency. So, do you have restless leg syndrome? Or maybe you're just chronically fatigued, and maybe you look pale, or if you're short of breath, if you bruise easily. Here's another interesting one. Do you crave ice? These are all signs of iron deficiency, and it can inhibit your ability to lose weight. So iron deficiency, according to WebMD, affects about 20% of women, 50% of pregnant women, and 3% of men. Part of the reason that women are more affected is that they just tend to eat less red meat. Another reason is blood loss during menstruation. You lose a lot of iron through that. And then when you're pregnant, you just need more iron because you're supporting another human. So it's much more common to be deficient in iron when you're pregnant. So now we have sort of the push towards plant-based eating. So now it's definitely going to rise, this iron deficiency. So iron comes in two different forms. There's heme iron, which comes from red meats, and there's non-heme iron. So you can get iron from plants, but that comes in the non-heme variety. And that's just not absorbed as well in the body. Just a tip, the vitamin C can increase absorption of iron. The other thing, too, is plants contain a molecule called polyphenols, and they can also inhibit iron absorption. So what's the relationship between energy and iron? So a lot of proteins and enzymes in the body need iron to function, and one of these proteins, which is pretty crucial, it's part of one of the electron transfer pathways of the body. It's called cytochrome. So you need iron to build cytochrome. So if you don't have enough iron, you don't build enough cytochrome, and that's one of the things that builds energy. If you don't have enough energy, your exercise is going to suffer. It's either going to be poor workouts or no workouts at all, and that's going to inhibit your weight loss. Now, I do want to bring up the point of exercise and weight loss because I think sometimes the focus is a little off. So weight loss is not necessarily from exercise. Weight loss really comes from your diet. You can certainly, burn a bunch of calories, but then that goes into that sort of calories in, calories out model. The weight loss, the way to think about it with exercise is when you're building muscle, and that should be the goal to get stronger, your body becomes more efficient. And also, another interesting point is most of the glucose, the sugar in your body, is living in the form of glycogen in your muscle tissue. So when you exercise, you're actually burning up some of that glucose or that glycogen really in your body, and that will in turn get you into ketosis faster, and it actually helps you become more insulin sensitive, which is a good thing. But if you're not getting enough iron, you're not producing enough cytochrome, your exercise will suffer, and you'll never burn up, it'll be a lot harder to burn up all that glycogen that's living in your body. So another interesting relationship is with iron and inflammation. So just remember that things like diabetes and insulin resistance will basically put you in an inflammatory state. Bear that in mind. And if you're obese or overweight, fat cells are like endocrine organs. They can secrete inflammation, secrete cytokines, which trigger inflammation. So iron is stored in the body in a molecule called ferritin. If you have an infection, like a bacterial infection, bacteria needs iron to replicate. So when you have an infection, the body basically locks up the ferritin so that the bacteria can't use it to replicate, which is an awesome process and pretty nifty. However, now the body can't use iron. So if you have an autoimmune disease or you've got diabetes and you're in this chronic inflammatory state, it's going to be really hard for your body to access iron. So this is what's called functional iron deficiency. Now, if you do eat red meat, which I endorse, the darker the better. The pigment of the meat is from the myoglobin, which contains the heme iron, not from the color of the blood. That's sort of a misunderstanding. If you don't eat red meat or you're on a plant-based diet, it's going to be important to consult with a physician to make sure you're getting your proper iron levels. If you have a chronic illness that causes systemic inflammation, that really should be addressed first. Otherwise, you're going to have that ferritin locked up and you won't have access to iron. You're going to be fatigued chronically. If you're not sure if you're sort of chronically inflamed, there is a blood test you can do. It's called CRP, C-reactive protein. That's a marker for inflammation. That's something that can be done with a home test kit. You'll hear about that in the ad at the end of this podcast. you can also get your iron levels checked through micronutrient testing. So if you're deficient and you're inflamed, address inflammation first, and then maybe talk to a physician or nutritionist or dietitian about iron supplementation. That is, if you don't eat red meat. Remember that the heme iron is better absorbed in the body, so if you're on a plant-based diet and you're getting a lot of non-heme iron, you may want to look at your vitamin C levels, because vitamin C levels may improve the absorption of that non-heme iron. So there you have it. There's my tips with weight loss. The calories in, calories out model is broken in the sense that it places the onus too much on the individual and causes guilt. And then iron deficiency can be a big problem when it comes to fatigue. Okay, Southwest Florida, I'll be talking to you soon. Do you have unexplained pain, or do you wonder just how healthy you are? When was the last time you had your blood tested? Blood chemistry analysis is a great way to stay ahead of any health conditions, and now you can have control of your health with Let's Get Checked. Let's Get Checked is an incredible company that sends blood tests to your home. You can choose from over 30 different tests, whether that's liver function, testosterone, micronutrient, cholesterol, or C-reactive protein, which is a marker for inflammation. It's sent to you with free shipping, and you get your results in 2 to 5 days, no physician referral needed. Use the code DPT30 for 30% off. Go to letsgetchecked.com and use the code DPT30. Did you know that you can get started with physical therapy without a physician's referral? Physical therapists don't just solve pain, we get down to the root cause and keep it from coming back. We also discuss all things health, such as nutrition and lifestyle changes. If you feel that you could use some help, let's get on a free consult call. Go to www.dynamicnaples.com and sign up for a free call. Also, if you like this podcast, please give us a rating wherever you listen to podcasts. It helps us spread the message. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you next week.